So, I have a question for you. Have you seen The Cutting Edge?
I'd only actually been on the ice twice before training for the film. Once I had gotten into the skating heavily, I just loved being on it, and I could sort of relate that to the character. But there are some things about Kate that I could relate to myself.
The skating almost kept me from the movie, but the idea of the love story and the quality of the writing were the things that attracted me. And I liked the character. I thought there was a lot in it that I could relate to. I really liked Paul Glazer when I met him, and I liked Moira, and so it seemed like a good thing to do.
Kate, somewhere in the middle of all this, I fell in love with you.
Moira is just so easy to work with, and just, I know everybody always says that crap in these interviews, but it's true. I mean, Moira was really great, and I would just show up, and she would do her thing, and I'd react to her and say my lines that Tony wrote that were so good, and it was not hell.
He's such a good guy. He's very supportive and very much like the big brother. I love joking around with him. He's the only guy, too, that I can really be sarcastic with, and he can take it, and he can give it back just as much, so it's good. It's nice chemistry.
So, I ask because something in our recent analytics have told us that people seem to really love this movie. Now, if you know me, you know The Cutting Edge is my all time number one favorite film. So, when we did a watch along of it a few years ago on this very channel, it was purely for the enjoyment of getting to watch my all time favorite movie. So, getting back to our It's Wonderful podcast weekly analytics, the statistics seem to show that every week that watch along is our number one viewed thing on the whole channel. Now, mind you, we are not a very big channel, but I found it interesting that every week this watch along is something that people click on. Now, I'm sure it's because people probably think it's the movie and they're trying to watch a free version, so they click on it, and once they realize it's just me and Morgan sat watching the film giving our commentary, they maybe click away. Or they just really want to watch this movie with us. But when I actually do talk about this film, I don't get a really strong reaction either way. Either people haven't heard of it, or they kind of vaguely remember it. So for our statistics to consistently show people clicking on that watch along every week is really intriguing. And of course, I'll find any reason to talk about this film. But I thought today I would do something a little different, as this film is my all-time favorite film. I have chosen to actively ignore these subsequent 3 sequels that have been released. Because if you didn't know, The Cutting Edge is a franchise. Yes, this film would spawn 3 sequels starting in the mid-2000s. But of course, these were not theatrically released films. These were ABC Family straight-to-TV released films. And I gotta say, I didn't really look into much about what these films were about. I just saw the cover, and it felt like a very light regurgitation of what The Cutting Edge is. I didn't need to see it because it was done perfectly in the original 1992 film. But in seeing the engagement coming from this watch along, it made me want to delve into these films for the first time and talk about this franchise. So let's get into the Cutting Edge franchise. Starting with the first 1992 film starring D.B. Sweeney and Moira Kelly, and directed by Paul M. Glazer and written by Tony Gilroy. So we're actually getting some pretty big names behind the camera with this film.
It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm just about 4 hours late here, Rita.
Rita.
Anita.
Gita. Gita.
Close.
Olympic star Doug Dorsey's the best hockey player in America, and he's about to retire. Kate Mosley was America's sweetheart,
Until Hercules here learns how to lock his grip, this will have to do.
and she's got a nickname that rhymes with rich.
What a thing.
For both of them, the Olympics had become a faraway dream
Here, you try.
until someone
Those are figure skates, pal.
set up the ultimate blind date.
Who the hell do you think you are?
I'm a guy who came a long way for lunch.
Please don't let me keep you from the trough.
Enough!
The king of the rink and America's ice queen just became a team.
Don't quit your day job. Would you please put me down? Ah, you frighten!
Guess that move needs some work. You've been doing what? I've been doing figure skating.
Finger painting?
As a matter of fact, I do have a boyfriend.
What do you do, keep him chained up in the basement?
I don't like to see her upset.
If I was you, I'd invest in blindfolds.
Are they gonna get it? Before they kill each other?
You look really nervous. How nervous are you?
Dorsey and Mosley, the American Olympic team's best shot at the goal.
You're falling for him.
Oh, that's crazy.
Thinks you've missed it. I am throwing myself at you. Get out of my way.
No problem. I've been practicing that move for a year and a half.
D.B. Sweeney,
Man, would I love to see you play hockey.
Moira Kelly,
Any day.
The Cutting Edge.
It's not like his nose was perfect.
So as I mentioned, this film was directed by Paul Michael Glaser, who also directed The Running Man and that one Shaq Jeannine movie. He's also directed a ton of television. And in the realm of acting, he's probably best known for playing Starsky on the 70s crime show Starsky and Hutch. And this film was written by Tony Gilroy. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he wrote several of the Bourne films, Nightcrawler, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, most recently the Andor TV series, and he got an Oscar nomination for writing and directing Michael Clayton. Then we have the film star D.B. Sweeney, who aside from this film is probably best known for the sci-fi film Fire in the Sky, and the ensemble baseball film 8 Men Out, where he played Shoeless Joe Jackson. And then the film's other star, Moira Kelly, who has a pretty extensive resume, appearing in Chaplin, the Joe Pesci Brendan Fraser film With Honors, the very popular TV series The West Wing, and most notably, she is the voice of Nala from The Lion King. What I love about this film is that we're not just invested in the romance of this pairing, we're also really involved in the Olympic sports aspect of the film. The end game for them is going to the Olympics and getting a gold medal. So as we see these montages of them training, working together, getting better, and even building up to this big epic move that is guaranteed to win them the gold, we get very invested in that aspect of the plot. On top of just this really fun will they won't they love-hate romance. From the pitch perfect music cues to the snappy dialogue and a great balance of dramatic tension and comedy, this film always hits on all cylinders for me. Hence why I chose to ignore the 3 sequels that came after it. So just about 15 years later, somebody decided this film needed a sequel. And I have to say, I didn't even really know what the sequel was about. I didn't even think it was connected to the original film. I figured it was just kind of a reboot situation where we just have 2 people on the ice who have their differences and come together but have this really antagonistic relationship. So I was very surprised to learn when I watched these sequels that they are in fact directly connected to the 1992 film. In fact, we actually do see the characters of Doug and Kate again in this first sequel, The Cutting Edge, Going for the Gold.
She skated in the shadow of 2 champions
You cannot keep pushing yourself like this.
until it all came crashing down. Now, to get a shot at the gold, the Princess on Ice
I'm making the shift over to pairs. If there's anyone who wants to skate with me, you know who to contact.
will have to join the Rebel on Wheels.
Here to try out. It's my dream.
Oh, please. He doesn't even know how to skate. I think you look good together.
Slacker.
Princess!
From Sony Pictures and MGM Studios.
You know, you're kind of cute when you get all mad.
He's so irresponsible.
Hit the ice. Make the cut. And take it to the edge.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
The Cutting Edge, going for the gold.
So in this film, we are following the daughter of Kate and Doug, played by Christy Carlson Romano as Jackie Dorsey. She's an acclaimed skater in her own right, but suffers a bad accident that puts her out of commission, and she has to work her way back, meaning that she's not quite 100% to do her typical moves as a single skater. She opts to get a partner. So she meets extreme skater Alex Harrison, and he becomes her partner. And we attempt to replicate the antagonistic relationship of the original characters. Now, I tried to go into this film with an open mind. I was pretty hesitant, but I attempted, and I have to say, this film definitely let me down. A lot of the logic of how they come together doesn't really make sense. The conflicts feel very contrived and fabricated. I don't really like either of these characters or care about them. And these really false versions of Kate and Doug with no effort to even feel like Kate and Doug just really pulled me out of it. They really seem to hit it off when they first meet each other. She's on vacation with her friends. She sees him surfing on the beach. He gets her attention, and they end up kind of spending the day together. They share a kiss, and everything's great until she sees that he actually works at the hotel. And then a classist kind of element comes into the mix, which is just kind of a weird choice. She ends up apologizing for judging him that way. But for whatever reason, he decides to, off on his own, practice figure skating with a bunch of kids in a kids class, and then proceeds to show up to audition to be her partner. So all of this just feels very weird and out of nowhere. And I'm not too sure why they decided to have them come together in this really pasted together way. And obviously this is 2006, so we're in the era of extreme sports. So we have him being a popular extreme skater where people are asking him for his autograph. And because he didn't show up to a photo shoot, he loses his sponsors. So he needs something else to do, and that's the other reason, I guess, why he decides to audition to be her partner. So how our characters ultimately come together is Kate ends up harnessing them together and shoving them in a room to be forced together to have to do everything as a couple. And this time together ultimately helps them find common ground, and some feelings spark up from there. But then, as these films go, Alex's ex-girlfriend comes back into the picture, and so that kind of puts a wrench in any potential budding romance between our two lead characters. So as I mentioned, all the conflicts between our characters just feel very fabricated, and it's the one that's most closely tied to the original film. So I think it needed to execute those elements incredibly well, because the original film did the love-hate dynamic and the sparring between our two leads that still had an underlying spark of flirtation and attraction incredibly well. So it makes the attempt to replicate that in this film that much more glaringly terrible. There are some logic leaps you kind of have to take with the timeline, because if the movie takes place in 1992, and that's when Doug and Kate kind of got together, because by the end of that film, that's when they're first saying their I love yous. At this time, Jackie would only be maybe like 14 years old, but she is played by 21-year-old Christy Carlson Romano, and she's like a full-grown adult. So yeah, we are definitely taking quite a few logic leaps here. The Cutting Edge 1992 has a really great climax. The dialogue is incredible in terms of the declaration of love that we see typically in rom-coms, and a fun little callback at the very end after they've done the big move, so we know they're winning the gold, and it's a cute little banter between the two of them to end the film in a really cute way that still feels very them.
Somewhere in the middle of all this, I fell in love with you.
You may take the ice.
I'm saying I love you. I'm saying it out loud. Don't say we're not right for each other, because the way I see it, we might not be right for anybody else. It can't be any harder to stay together than it was to stay apart.
Vous avez 30 secondes pour mes questions. 30 seconds.
Will you wait a minute? Kate, I need you. I need you.
We're doing the Pemchenko.
What?
Oh, you heard me.
You think I'm doing all this to get a program out of you?
You want to win, don't you?
No, it's no good, Kate. It's too dangerous.
Then we agreed. We're putting it in.
Out.
In.
Out.
In.
Out.
In.
What difference does it make?
The difference is, I'm in the mood to kick a little ass.
You didn't have to.
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because I love you.
Just remember who said it first.
This film tries to replicate that to a very cheesy, unexciting degree. In fact, this is my face watching that finale.
Yes. The answer to everything is yes.
Oh my gosh, I have to talk about the music. The music was so terrible in this film. You could tell they were trying to do these sound-alike songs to replicate things in the original, and they couldn't get copyrighted music. So again, with songs that were meant to sound like songs that we know, and just how bad the music was and the lyrics were just weird. It felt very much like stock music or like the really corny songs that you would hear in Tommy Wiseau's The Room. Like, it was taking me out, this music.
She promised.
We were not getting off to a great start with the cutting edge going for the gold, as I just did not enjoy this film at all, and I was very concerned to continue with this experiment. So it would be a mere 2 years later in 2008 when we get the second sequel, or the third film in this franchise, The Cutting Edge, Chasing the Dream, in 2008.
So much strength and so much power on the ice, they are just a pleasure to watch.
Some competitors seem destined for glory,
Zach, I'm not ready! Zach!
only to have their dreams ripped away.
He needs a partner.
He's a dangerous skater. I can't find anyone else willing to partner up with him.
No, he's not dangerous. He's brilliant.
You really want me to skate with someone else?
It's the only thing that makes sense.
Others only get their shot if fate lends a hand.
Idiota!
Becoming partners would be a long shot.
Let me ask you a question. Will you skate with me?
You're wasting your time. I don't go for guys in leotards.
Figure, hockey, roller. Strap him on and I'll smoke you every time.
He's a famous skater, and if he wants to skate with you, then that means something, no?
You want to throw your career away? You do it. Do it without me.
Becoming champions
Hola.
could be incredible.
Watch your edges. They're sharper.
And relax. Oh, and don't forget about the toe.
Picks.
Thank you.
I'm gonna put my hands down to your stomach.
It's okay to be afraid, but don't let the fear keep you from doing what you were meant to do.
I want you breathing, eating everything but sleeping together from now until nationals. And let me emphasize the not sleeping together part.
Be careful. Don't let this girl fall in love with you.
She knows what I am.
You're handsome, talented, and rich. And you're a nice guy, which only makes it worse.
Again, faster, faster.
I promise to skate for you, which I will keep doing until there's nothing left.
Higher, higher on the belts.
I will never
Wait. This is Alejandra, an amateur hockey player who has to be the absolute longest of long shots.
I'm still waiting on you to answer the first question I ever asked you. Will you skate with me?
Some victories are won by the heart. The cutting edge, chasing the dream.
And I'll say right off the bat, I actually kind of enjoyed this one. This one is doing the thing that I was expecting all of these films to do, which was have a ice skater hockey player come together like in the original film. But this one tries to get a little clever with it, and we do a bit of a gender swap. So our hockey player is the girl and our professional figure skater is the boy. This film does still contain the connection to the original film, as we have Jackie Dorsey coming back, played by Christy Carlson Romano, to be the coach at a certain point for these characters in the film. And what I liked about this one was that they create some really interesting character dynamics. Even though we are doing the same general thing with the hockey player and the figure skater coming together, and that being the kind of difference that our characters have to work through right off the bat, we're not getting the love-hate antagonistic relationship. Our characters seem to really have these mature, positive relationships with one another. The dynamic between our lead character Zach and his original partner Celeste is actually very well thought out and put together. They were a couple. Their relationship in a romantic sense didn't work out, but they still see each other and have this respect for each other as partners. And they have handled their breakup really well. And the only kind of dynamic that stresses that relationship is that the world sees them as this power couple, as America's skating sweethearts. And so they're kind of playing this up for appearances and have this fear of telling the public that they're not together anymore. But them, as themselves, in their private space, are okay with the fact that they're not a couple anymore. So I think that's a really interesting dynamic to look at, and I wasn't expecting something like that. When Celeste does sustain an injury that takes her out of the game due to Zach trying to do this move, I thought she was going to blame him and get upset with him for ruining her career or ruining her chances to compete. But she actually isn't upset at all. She is upset that she can't compete, but she doesn't blame him. You know, she takes responsibility for her hesitating in the moment, and that is what made her fall. So again, just very mature dynamics, because I expected another retread of this fabricated conflict. So when our characters are kind of getting along and having these actually smart, thoughtful, respectful conversations, it was kind of a nice, refreshing surprise. And Celeste decides to help with the process of still giving Zach his shot by finding him a partner to kind of stand in until she is okay to compete again. He's struggling to find a partner. They want him to partner with this Russian girl who is living up to the stereotype of being kind of evil and cruel to her partner, so he is not into that, even though she's a great skater. And he's just getting really frustrated. So he's on the ice one day having his Kevin Bacon footloose in the warehouse moment, and runs into a bunch of hockey players who have come in to use the ice. And when they try to get him off of the ice, he gets a little antagonistic with them and challenges them to play hockey against them. And he's actually pretty good. Like, I thought they were going to make him look dumb, but no, he's actually really good. He's kind of putting some flair on his moves as an ice skater, and he's kind of kicking their butts until this masked player comes into the mix, knocks him down, and also was a great player as well and a great skater. Only for this person to take off their mask, and it's a girl. um, so he's impressed, and he even kind of catches a glimpse of her on the ice before they actually start the next game, doing some figure skating style moves. So he's intrigued by her. and decides he wants her to train with him to be his partner, as it looks like she has a really great skating base. His coach doesn't really want this. His partner doesn't really want this, but she's still trying to be supportive, and she's kind of caught in the middle between what her partner wants and what the coach wants. So he gets his way, and he does get to train with Alex. And again, I think the only bit that was antagonistic was right at the beginning during the hockey game. But then after that, it's pretty smooth relationship. They get along. And part of the conflict between the two of them has nothing to do with any kind of antagonistic argument or disagreement. It's the fact that she kind of starts to have feelings for him. And his partner Celeste warns him to not lead her on because that could complicate things, just as it kind of almost did with their relationship. And says, I know you, so I know how to handle, you when, uh, things don't quite work out. But if you let her fall for you and you hurt her, that's not going to be good because she doesn't understand how to navigate you like I do. So he definitely just genuinely doesn't want to hurt her. So even if he's feeling things, he tries to hold back and distance himself. So again, a really interesting dynamic between our skaters that I was not expecting. So ultimately, I don't think the acting was incredible, but I liked our characters this time. I really enjoyed their dynamic, their relationship, the kind of flirtatious aspects, and they had solid chemistry. And you did find yourself rooting for them. And this film actually brings back the big move from the original 1992 film, The Pamchenko, because at a certain point there's a falling out with Zach's original coach, so they call in Jackie to be their coach, and so they need a big move to win. So she pulls out the notebook with the Pamchenko move in it, discusses it in context with her parents, and that's the move they decide to do. So we get to see the Pamchenko again. So it was kind of cool to see our characters revisit the big move from the original film, and it's one of the few times I think in these sequels where they reference something from the first film that actually works. And I think it's a good way to interconnect it to the original film, to bring back the Christy Carlson Romano character. I liked her better here than I did in the previous film. Because in the Going for the Gold film, she felt like she was trying too hard to be this like tough, domineering boss kind of person. But here it makes sense for her to be more bossy because she's their coach. So her being really commanding and really calling them out makes a lot more sense. So she felt like her Cadet Kelly character in this movie, which I think worked as her being the coach more than it did her kind of doing something similar in her film when she's supposed to kind of be on a level playing field with her partner. She's not the coach of him, they're a partnership. So I think that's what really hurt the dynamic between the two of them in their film, but her as this kind of separate side character in this film, I much preferred. So I found myself pleasantly surprised by the cutting edge chasing the dream. I liked the romance a lot more than the previous film. The callbacks to the original film were better executed. Our characters were actually likable. There were some really interesting, mature dynamics between the characters as well, which was really refreshing. And I had a lot of fun with the story. So, yeah, I actually really enjoyed this one. I will say, though, the ending is a bit disappointing, as we do kind of try to do this big love declaration, which is another kind of nod to the original film. But it ends with her saying that she wants to skate with him always. Like, that's literally kind of the last line in the film. But then you cut to the poster of the third film, and that's not the same guy. So always was apparently very short-lived. So going into this next film now, I'm thinking, what happened to Zach? How come that didn't work out? It seemed like they were, in it, and, I'll skate with you always. Yeah, so with that, we move on just another 2 years later to 2010 with The Cutting Edge of Fire and Ice. So I could not for the life of me find a trailer for this film anywhere, but in this film we see Alex, no longer pro, now teaching skating, and they establish that she is single and on the market. Then we meet our co-lead of the film, a cocky bad boy speed skater by the name of James McKenzie, who's making headlines because he's just been banned from the sport for punching his teammate. With threats of sponsors wanting to drop him, his coach has plans to get this overturned, but in the meantime, James is forced to contemplate his next move to keep him in the limelight and keep his sponsors happy. Meanwhile, we see Alex playing it safe as she's given up the sport and finding it hard to acknowledge just how much she misses it and wants to return. But then she's approached by a very acclaimed Japanese coach who offers her the opportunity to skate with none other than James McKenzie. If she's going to come back, she's determined to take things seriously, so that obviously comes into conflict with his bad boy ways. Alex is worried this is a publicity stunt, so it does take some convincing, but ultimately she agrees to skate with James and the two become a team. Over time, they start having fun with each other, get deep with one another, and play into some flirtatious instincts. The end game is a gold medal, but they soon learn that they'll be fighting for the true prize. Love. Can they make it happen? The Cutting Edge, Fire and Ice. So I actually was a huge Roswell fan, so I was a fan of Brendan Fair, and he really does play into the bad boy aesthetic well, so I think that was good casting. So I think is probably a testament to this director's really solid experience and acclaimed filmography that this film probably had the best structure. I don't know too much about Holly Bix, the screenwriter, but generally the story here worked really well. It made sense, and it really felt like a typical rom-com. So anything that felt kind of fabricated in terms of conflict between our characters, it felt like something you would see in your typical and popular rom-com. So generally, for what this film is, I think that works, as opposed to going for the gold, where a lot of the conflict, as I said, felt very kind of made up just for the sake of trying to do something similar to the first film, and it didn't really make sense. So as I said, we are wondering what happened to Zach, because we ended the last one with always, I'll skate with you always, and he's not here, and it's now Brendan Fair on the poster. So the film explains to us that Zach was basically kind of at the end of his career in that last film. He'd already been skating for 15 years and he was ready to retire. But Alex, she was just getting started and wanted to skate more. And so her being at the beginning of her skating journey and him being at the end of his skating journey, I guess is what created the conflict between the two of them and ended their relationship. So sure, I guess that makes sense. But what happens with the dynamic between her and the James character, I think, is really interesting in the fact that the antagonistic aspect doesn't last very long. They're kind of at odds with each other because he's kind of this cocky, immature showboater, and she is just really kind of taking this seriously because this is her big chance to get back into skating again. And so that's where the conflict happens, but ultimately they kind of resolve it to the point where they're like having fun together. They're playing strip poker, and they find this common ground, but they still have a bit of light banter. So it's not this wholly love-hate thing for a huge chunk of the film. Another really interesting dynamic is that we actually have them establish feelings pretty early on before the finale. So I think in the kind of last third of the film, we still have a pretty decent chunk of film left. The two of them actually hook up and kind of establish that they like each other and then go and skate a program. So I really wasn't expecting that, because all of these films kind of build to the emotional reveal of feelings. and a kiss and all of that. None of that ever really happens until the big finale of the film. So the fact that we're getting this pre-finale is really interesting. So we see the two of them end up hooking up, kind of deciding that they like each other. They skate a great program, they're doing interviews, and then as James is kind of really getting into the interview, kind of bragging about how well they did, Alex kind of sneaks away and she runs into a character played by Stephen Amell, who was a TV host that we saw at the beginning of the film, who was actually interviewing the James character. And he had just gotten off the phone with Alex, talking about how, you know, he had taken her out on a few dates and wanted to take her out again. So when he runs into her backstage, he's asking her if she would like to go out with him again. She says she's seeing somebody, as she's established that she kind of wants something to happen with James. And so he wishes them well and kisses her on the cheek. Of course, at that very moment, that's when James decides to look over, and from the angle he's at, it looks like they're kissing. And so he gets upset. And so that's what causes the big conflict between the two of them just before our big finale. So, as I said, very much the a rom-com fabrication that we need to create some strife with our characters before we, you know, resolve everything with a nice neat bow in the finale. But very typical of rom-coms, so it works, it makes sense. The miscommunication is always a huge thing in films like this. Again, I did find it really interesting that we had our characters like hook up and kiss and establish feelings quite a bit of ways before the finale. This one tries to do like a big move finale, but it's a move they come up with on their own, which, okay, you know, a little bit of a different take on the Pamchenko thing, because we just saw that in the last film. But even the big move was not incredibly impressive, especially compared to the Pamchenko. But I appreciate what they were trying to do with that. And they do try to call back to the end line of the original film when, you know, she says, "Because I love you," and he says, "Just remember who said it first." Brendan Fair tries to pull out that line and it doesn't quite land, but okay, sure, I gave it a pass because generally I think the film works pretty well. As I said, I think this film probably has the best structure. I think the performances by our two leads really worked. You know, we just saw the Alex character have great chemistry with Zach, so now we're moving into this film, and she still has pretty solid chemistry with James as well. So I wasn't missing Zach. They made it make sense story wise. I was expecting something maybe like Zach would have died, and that would have been the only reason that she had such a hard time coming back to skating, was because she lost her partner. But the fact that they just kind of break up just feels like, but I guess, you know, a death would have been a little too dark for an ABC family movie, I guess. But yeah, I think the story they crafted was fine. You know, them kind of being different, him being this wild, you know, showboaty speed skater, her being this really kind of serious ice skater, and that being the fire and ice that we're dealing with, and really playing up the opposites attract vibe of what the original film established. So yeah, I enjoyed Fire and Ice, but I have to say Chasing the Dream is probably my favorite of the three. I found myself really just getting more invested in the story, in the characters, really finding the dynamics between the characters interesting and refreshing. Um, so yeah, if I had to rank them, I would obviously say the original Cutting Edge is number one, Chasing the Dream at number two, Fire and Ice at number three, and in dead dog last, I'm putting Going for the Gold. I just did not like that film at all. So yeah, those are my feelings on the Cutting Edge franchise. I don't know if that got me any closer to understanding why people are watching our Cutting Edge watch along every week for analytics, but it just got me thinking about doing this finally, and pulling the trigger on um, watching this franchise and fleshing out the world of my all-time favorite film. So overall, I'm kind of glad that I did it, because I found myself having fun with some of these movies. I grew up in the DCOM era. I love teen dramas and things like that, and soapy feeling things. So these films really play into that, particularly with the creatives behind the films. So these films really tap into that youthful aspect of my um, entertainment enjoyment. So I found things to get into with these films that I did in fact enjoy. So yeah, overall glad that I did it, and I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about these films. If you have never watched The Cutting Edge from 1992, I implore you to check it out. Put on our watch along and watch it along with us. If you want to check out these sequels as well, they are on Tubi. That's where I watch them, so you can check those out there. But yeah, a fun little side quest for me today. So I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about these films. And if you did, please do all the things like share, subscribe, hit that bell to be notified when we post new videos here on this channel. We right now are doing our spin-off series Morgan Hasn't Seen TV, where I have Morgan watch a TV series he's never seen before. So we are steadily working our way through Dawson's Creek. We are on season 2 of Morgan's first time watch of my all-time favorite series. As I said, I am into the teen soapy stuff. So I'm so excited that I'm getting to share this show with Morgan. So those come out every other Monday right here on this YouTube channel. So check that out. We also have more videos in store for you. Morgan, he does his physical media haul videos when he gets a new batch of films. So please check those out right here on YouTube. And hopefully I can come back with some more holiday streaming films. I really had a blast doing that last year, bringing some holiday streaming reviews to you. So hopefully I'll get to do that again this year. So yeah, hit the bell to be notified of all of those fun things right here on YouTube. Also, follow us on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed, all places podcasts can be found, for our shows. Monday Madness, which is on a break right now, but you can catch up on old episodes where we just talk really interesting movie topics. You can also find Monday Madness here on this YouTube channel. But on the podcast feed, we also have our Wednesday show, Morgan Hasn't Seen. Every Wednesday and every Friday, we have our Classic Films podcast, It's a Wonderful Podcast. So find us there over on all of the podcast platforms. Of course, you can find me at Jeannine Devine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. And follow Morgan as well on all his socials down in the description below. I hope you had fun with me today in this video. And thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.